Hi everyone, it's William. It's 22nd August 2025, kind of a scorcher here. And we are in 1915 today, in the winter, in February 1915. The last video was 1936, continuing Dmitri's January speech at a Young Russia conference in Paris, and really focusing on defending his right to be involved in politics, and his denial that he was just being used by the Young Russia Party, and that he was naive and had let them pull the wool over his eyes. Okay, in 1915, we had his tonsillectomy, and our cast today, we have, kind of the whole family, his father, his stepmother, his half-brother, all coming, and then we have the two doctors returning, or is it only one? No, it's both of them. They both come back to check on the patient the day after his operation. We have Sandro of Leuchtenberg and some newcomers, one called Mitusov and Zarnikau, and then finally we have Sis, Grand Duchess Maria turns up. All right, we're up to the 9th/the 27th of February 1915, which was a Monday. I had to look that up because in his later diaries, Dmitri always puts what day of the week it is, but in these he doesn't. Anyway, yes, it was a Monday in Petrograd at Nevsky 41, 2 degrees above freezing and overcast, but as previously, Dmitri didn't really need to worry about what the weather was like because he spent the entire day inside. Here we go. I slept pretty badly, waking up almost every 2 hours, probably because I spent almost all of yesterday drowsing. I felt a little better in the morning, although my throat hurt much less. My headache was gone. In the morning, I was allowed to have warm coffee and bits of bread. Around 12 o'clock, Papa and Bodya came and we had lunch. I got out of bed wearing my robe. I absolutely can't have meat until next Wednesday. Papa was very kind. The Countess dropped by for a few minutes around 1:30, then left with Papa. I got back into bed. Sandro came at 4 o'clock, bringing along Mitusov and Zarnikau. They stayed quite a long time. Then Ostrogorsky and Polyakov came. They found that everything was going well. Then I read for quite a long time. My head even started to ache. I ate alone in bed, just kasha and jelly, and my throat is better. It hurts even less than it did in the morning. I had tea in my bathrobe with Maria, then laid down. Okay, so he and Maria were not both wrapped up in his bathrobe. That sounds a little funny. I had tea in my bathrobe with Maria. I had tea with Maria in my bathrobe. Yeah, you can't really avoid that, but I'm sure you're not confused by that. Okay, so our first group of visitors today, the day after the surgery. So, yeah, I'm sure some people didn't want to come that early on. This raises an interesting question of what Dmitri's relationship was like with Bodya, because his relationship with his stepmother and half-siblings was not good when he was, an adolescent, and he and Maria believed that their stepmother had enticed their father away from them, and that their father had this new son, and then these new daughters, And apparently, I'm told by Ed that Dmitri was really very, very angry on one occasion when Paul introduced him. This was before the First World War, obviously, when Paul introduced him to a guest as my oldest son. And I don't know why that upset him so much. But at this point, he seems to be, sort of enjoying his little brother. Yeah, and I know that when he was exiled to Persia, Bodya drew some pretty harsh caricatures of, I can't remember if it was Nicholas and Alexandra or just Alexandra. I'll have to see if I can find one of those. It's definitely on his brother's side. And it was the same, with Olga, with his stepmother, that at first Dmitri and Maria were very hostile to her. And even, was it 1910 or 1911, he was, going sort of out of his way in a letter to his sister to describe how she wears a wig, she has false teeth, she looks like she's 90 years old, so on and so forth. But at some point that changed. He started to warm up to her even before the revolution, and in this case he just calls her the Countess. I'm not sure if that was even accurate. I'm not sure exactly when she was made princess. I think she already was Princess Palais. But then later he started calling her Mamachka, like mommy, or yeah, I mean really kind of something affectionate and endearing, and they all of them got pretty close after the revolution, so that was good. Anyway, the little girls at this point never appear in his diary entries or his letters, so I guess they were just sort of tucked away in the nursery, although, as you know, he was sort of entranced by little girls, how cute they were, how sweet they were, as long as they were well behaved. So I'm surprised that he doesn't make a little more of his little sisters, his little half-sisters. Okay, Papa was kind. That's typical of Dmitri. If anyone is nice to him, he always notes it, even in this instance with his father. So the next person who comes along is Sandro, the Duke of Leuchtenberg. He was a buddy of Dmitri's, and he will be appearing in later diaries. He'll be in the diaries in 1920 and 1921. He'll be in the Schatzalp diaries, and we've already talked about him a little bit. He was 9 years, almost 10 years older than Dmitri. He was an orphan like Dmitri. His mother died. They both had their fathers, but his mother died when he was 2 or something like that. So they had that in common. And yeah, he would become the commander of the 4th Don Regiment as of 1916. Dmitri was not advancing at that same rate. He was not taking any commands. And actually, I don't think he wanted one. I don't think he was asking the Tsar, please give me my own regiment, because he was, as you know, a person who was much more engaged with politics and current events and foreign affairs and that sort of thing. The battlefield was not his element. Okay, so Mitusov. So Leuchtenberg brings 2 friends with him. Mitusov, I don't know much about. I only know one thing about him, and that is that he would be in Berlin in 1921, the same time Dmitri was there. I need to go back and look at those translations and see if there's anything else about him. And then Count Nikolai Zarnikov, who was quite close to Dmitri's age, about 4 years older. And he was the morganatic son of Constantine, the Duke of Oldenburg. So a Romanov on his mother's side, as was Sandro. I should mention that David Chavchavadze told me that Georgian names always put the stress mildly on the last syllable, and that you would say he was called Datiko, and that you would say Sandro in this instance. But I don't know if Alexander Mikhailovich or if Alexander of Leuchtenberg, who were both called Sandro, I don't know. Maybe the Russian form of it was Sandro. Actually, Alexander Mikhailovich would have been Sandro, because he was raised in Central Asia, in the Caucasus, and all of the brothers were given Georgian diminutive forms of their names. All right, so Zarnikel was also in the Horse Guards. So he was someone who'd known Dmitri for quite a long time. And the interesting thing about him is that they advanced at the same rate. So, you know, the generation previously, certainly with Dmitri's son, for instance, they were given very high rank from birth on. And the idea was that they would receive their education would be counted as their military service. Just like, you know, not just like, but sort of outwardly supposed to be like what Peter the Great had done, where he'd formed his own regiment, his own training regiment when he was just a boy. And he started out as a drummer boy, and he advanced through the ranks only as he mastered the skills necessary to go up to the next level. And Grand Ducal education after that, and for instance under Paul I and under Nicholas I, was that way. You start out, you have the honorary rank. As you're a child, you might be appointed, you know, the Inspector General of Artillery or something like that. But then you were supposed to learn the skills at every level, from, you know, a private or cornet on. And by the time you reach maturity, you had already done that, and you were entitled then to hit the ground running and to have higher ranks. Well, that didn't happen anymore by the time Dmitri was born. So, and he didn't have that kind of education. And so he started out as a cornet when he graduated from the Nicholas Cavalry School, and when the war started, he was still a cornet, as was Nikolai Zarnigal, Count Nikolai Zarnigal, and they advanced then at the same rate. So they became lieutenants, and they both ended, I believe they both ended with the rank of captain, which was what Dmitri was at the time he left Russia, and was also the rank that the British Army gave him. Okay, so did these two fellows overstay? Dmitri doesn't say so explicitly. He doesn't use his favorite word, boring. It was a bore, but he does say they stayed quite a long time, and he wasn't feeling well, so they probably did. What was he reading? He reads so long that he gets a headache, but he doesn't tell us. Usually he does. That's frustrating. Was he being given painkillers? Was he, I think aspirin already existed by 1915, or was he just doing the macho thing and going without it? I rather think the latter, actually. Yeah, finally, what do we have next time? Well, 1915, when we return to 1915, the day after tomorrow, we'll have new visitors, amongst whom will be Felix Yusupov the Younger this time, not the father, but the son. And, you know, Dmitri won't seem too thrilled about that, which is interesting. That surprised me a little. So we'll see that in 1936. In the next video, we'll have some fairly harsh words, quite harsh words for his opponents. He's kind of got his Irish up now, so he's going to lash out at them. And we'll have a quote from Kirill from 1925, talking about his principles in young Russia. And then we'll have a little bit of boasting on Dmitri's part about his political connections outside of the emigre community. All right. So I certainly hope to see you for both of those. And stay cool. Take care. See you next time.